This is a chess engine, evaluating every time a piece is moved who has the advantage. As someone makes a bad move, it swings in favor for the other player. As the skill level of the chess players increase, the more perfect one has to play as the smallest mistake can be capitalized on. In this way, Rocket League is the exact same way. The only difference, we don't have a chess engine to analyze, we have coaches. Traditional Rocket League has always been focused on the next 5 seconds of the game. Second man playing best case scenario, third man playing worst case scenario. GenG and Kcorp have started thinking further and further ahead, and the results, undeniable. But how do you begin thinking about Rocket League in longer time frames? You develop a system. Just as chess started with developing principles, then openings, then multiple lines of theory, Rocket League tactics are on the exact same trajectory. While chess is taken in turns, in Rocket League all the pieces are moving at the same time. There is always a certain level of variability that exists the further out you look. So how do you develop a system in a game with uncertainty? You play percentages. And how do you beat a team playing percentages? You play the percentages their system doesn't cover. This is the part of the video that involves a bit of speculation from me. I don't know what process GenG and Kcorp are doing to get closer and closer to one of the systems I've developed, but there is a sciencey term called simultaneous invention where people find the same solution coming at it from different ways when they're trying to accomplish the same results. So while our systems may have some variance, the core strengths and weaknesses in practice are the same. So let's get into what they are doing and how to stop it. So before I show you the gameplay, I want to go over the core concepts of what I call a cover 2 system. The main point of a cover 2 system is to have somebody solo play and rotate through and around, maintaining momentum so they can be back and support by the time the rest of the play develops. The big thing that you will see that differs from standard rotation is the second and third don't play like a typical second or third. Typically, the goal is to just contain it in their half of the field. So they are going to see which side of the field the play is developing on, and they are going to shade together, acting as a unit, so that way no matter where that ball goes, there's somebody there to challenge it. So let's begin to watch how this play develops from Itachi's touch. So they get a shot. Now Vatira is there. And now watch how immediately this play is moving pretty quickly, but you see how immediately Tachi and Exotic are playing back, so that way it keeps the play in front of them as Vatira is rotating out. Now Itachi takes it in. And again, you see now that the play slowed down a little bit, Itachi makes his play. If we divide the field into thirds, you'll see that Vatira is covering this third and Exotic is covering this third because the play is developing on this side of the field. The other aspect to shading is not only covering different sections horizontally, but matching the aggressiveness with defensiveness between these two. So because Exotic is covering this space aggressively, Vatira is sitting back as Itachi makes his play. So this allows them some more flexibility in how much pressure and how much commitment they have on the field. But the whole goal, again, is to just keep it in their half. As this play develops, Exotic realizes that he can't make a play on this. Vatira is playing his third. So he pushes up and Exotic pushes back to fill in this space as Itachi rotates to fill in his space. Now the play changes sides for a quick moment and you see that shading together. But as the play pushes back north,
They again work together, again matching aggressiveness with defensiveness as Vatir is rotating out to fill in that space. So again, I want you to pay attention to Exotic and Itachi here. So they're covering thirds. They see which side it's developing on. Itachi falls back as Exotic goes for it because it's playing in his third and it's not close enough to Itachi for him to be able to cut. And Itachi plays that 50. Now here is the one mistake that Itachi makes, and it allows a clear, but because they've had so much pressure, there's not going to be any follow-up here. If we notice this slight hesitation from Itachi to get back and to now fill that follow-up slot, he plays a little bit aggressively here. This is what allows that slowing down right here. If he continues to rotate through these pads and go here, then he's going to keep this play in front of him instead of having to shadow and force. That's a small thing that happens, but even in this situation, a clear happens. He realizes that he's not optimally positioned to keep it in, so he falls back to defense. He gets it clear. Vatira plays it forward, and then this is the only time in this entire minute stretch from Itachi's original touch that this ball is on their half of the field. And now watch again how they set up their defense on offense. So Vatira is going for this ball, and now watch the shading again. They're fairly equal here. They're coming. As Exotic pushes up, Itachi starts to fall back. As Exotic falls back, Itachi starts to push up. Now they're about even. They see the play is in front of them. Again, they're guarding separate thirds. Exotic gets there. Itachi gets the follow-up. And now the rotation begins. They do get aggressive here because they believe they have a chance to score. But again, this midfield presence. Itachi's a little bit aggressive on his rotation middle. And again, that's the only time they get any sort of pressure outside of their half. Now we're going to switch over to GenG. This is game 5. And we're going to watch a very similar pattern of attack on the macro level. So we'll start off with this kickoff. They get possession. Again, very solo play. Jack's in front of the ball. Again, that shading still in play between Jack and a Chronic. They play a little bit wider out and do a little bit more passing at the midfield. So right here, this is that shading. So Nolly is rotating through to fill in that middle slot. It does get a little awkward, but that same principle is applying. He gets over, he's rotating through to get back to cover middle and be aggressive at that midfield. Chronic's still on this ball. Appjack is pushing forward. You see the shading again as Appjack is being aggressive. Nolly is playing more passive. And again, it's all about just keeping it in their half and keeping possession. So now they set up the third, and they're able to get a goal. But all of that is just focused on that shading at that midfield and keeping pressure and keeping the ball either in your possession or on their half where nobody has possession. So let's take a look at a little later on in the game where GenG is faced with a similar situation and how they use short passing or just the threaten of a short pass to allow themselves to get out of this defense. Right here, Chronic pulls up, and I want you to notice the positioning of Nolly here. Nolly made an initial touch on the ball, and he's rotating through. Now when Chronic pulls forward, instead of Razebull being able to immediately cut this off, or CRR be able to immediately challenge this in a one-on-one situation, because there is a threat of the pass, CRR has to play further back to cover this, and even if Razebull and Nolly have full boost here, there's still this threat of this gap right here. And so finding this gap and getting possession is going to be the key. Finding this gap right here is going to be the key to beating this offense and not allowing them to maintain pressure. Other options in this scenario would to be immediately play the man and create a 1-on-2 situation, where instead of Appjack going for the ball, he would just go for AJG or CRR, depending on how much space this ball has. Again, not going to go into so many nuances because there's so many different factors that will play into it. I'm just going over the general concepts. But creating this 2v2 situation and then playing this 2v2 situation well, where one player is beat by a short pass, is going to be how you pick apart this defense, because there's going to be that gap there because they're playing so defensively at the midfield. Now, I realize this is much easier said than done, which is why I'm focusing on the macro principles and not every minute detail as to what can happen. But this is the key principle of finding that gap in that wide rotation and threatening not only the person that's interacting with the ball, but the person who has to follow up the play.
Now that we understand the core strength and the core weakness of this playstyle, it is now possible to come out in a stacked formation with the goal of exploiting that weakness. But be careful. Both of these teams are extremely smart. Just as Cover 2 has a weakness, Stacked has a weakness. And as this circular meta evolves, we're going to see commitments to these systems faster and faster in more innovative ways and more intentionality among these positioning choices. Are you going to stick to your system and just try and outclass the other team who has a positional advantage? Or are you and your team going to learn different systems so that way, no matter the circumstance, you can maintain positional advantage? Welcome to the new era of systems-based Rocket League. If you are looking to elevate you or your team's game, I am now available on Metafy. With over 3,000 hours of replay reviews and experience coaching multiple top 100 players, I will give you the tools to do anything from rank up to winning tournaments with prize money.